He expected thanks for the rescue. She offered him something far more dangerous. Lightning arced across the sky, painting the clouds in streaks of blinding white and deep violet. The shuttle shuddered under the relentless force of the wind, and alarms blared inside the cockpit, warning of structural stress. Still, Elias remained calm. His focus was razor-sharp, every muscle and thought directed at the mission ahead. The stranded research team was counting on him, and failure was not an option. He had expected danger when he accepted the mission, but nothing quite prepared him for the chaotic fury of the storm. It was almost as if the planet itself was alive, deliberately testing him. He guided the shuttle through the turbulence with skill that came from years of experience in the fleet. Each twist, each sudden drop, each burst of wind was another challenge that demanded his full attention. But Elias thrived under pressure. The harder the situation, the more alive he felt. Through the storm, he could barely make out the faint signal of the beacon from the research team's stranded transport. They had been trapped for 2 days after a violent energy storm had damaged their craft. Communications were weak, supplies limited, and the planet's environment was highly unstable. The fleet had deemed the mission too dangerous for standard rescue, but Elias volunteered anyway. The thought of leaving them behind, knowing they were alive but helpless, had been unbearable. "Almost there," he muttered under his breath, eyes scanning the sensor readings for any sudden shifts. A massive flash of lightning struck close by, illuminating the jagged cliffs below. The shuttle rocked violently, and Elias' heart skipped a beat. But he pressed on, navigating with precision through the hazardous terrain. Finally, he saw them, the small transport, its hull scorched and smoke rising from its damaged engines, nestled in a narrow canyon. The research team waved frantically, their gestures barely visible through the storm. Elias' pulse quickened, not from fear but from the surge of relief. They were alive, and he was about to bring them home. He maneuvered the shuttle into position, descending with careful control. The wind buffeted the craft, threatening to push it off course. A sudden gust slammed into the shuttle's side, spinning it dangerously. Elias fought to stabilize the vessel, feeling every bone in his body tense with the effort. Sweat ran down his forehead, mixing with the fine spray of rain from the storm. Time seemed to stretch as he made a split-second decision to adjust the thrusters and angle the shuttle differently. It worked. The craft leveled, and he could now make the final descent safely. The shuttle touched down with a heavy thud, kicking up rocks and dust. The research team rushed toward him, their faces a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and gratitude. Elias stepped out of the shuttle, rain plastering his hair to his forehead, and gave them a reassuring nod. "Everyone okay?" he called over the roaring wind. "Yes." "Thanks to you, Commander," one of the team members shouted. Another, younger scientist, stumbled slightly as he reached the shuttle. "We didn't think anyone could get through that storm. You're incredible." Elias smiled briefly, but there was little time for celebration. The storm was still raging, and they had to get out of the canyon before it worsened. "Get to the shuttle quickly. We'll be leaving in 2 minutes," he instructed, his voice firm but calm. The team followed his orders with efficiency, a mixture of training and desperation driving them forward. Among them, one figure moved with a grace and composure that made her stand out. She did not rush or panic. Her dark hair clung to her face in wet strands, and her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the surroundings as though she were measuring the storm itself. Dr. Lyra Kale. Elias had heard of her, brilliant, enigmatic, and fearless. He expected her to be grateful like the others, but something about her expression suggested she had far more on her mind than mere thanks. Once everyone was aboard, Elias took a deep breath and lifted the shuttle off the ground. The storm fought him every step of the way, but he guided the craft through narrow channels and jagged cliffs, climbing toward clearer skies. Below them, the canyon seemed alive with the storm's fury, but above, a thin sliver of calm awaited. As they emerged from the worst of the turbulence, the team began to relax. Smiles appeared, laughter echoed softly in the shuttle, and thanks were offered once again. Elias allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had done what many thought impossible. Then there was Lyra. She remained standing near the back, her gaze fixed on him, intense and unreadable. Elias approached her carefully. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral though curiosity laced his words. She turned toward him, a small, almost imperceptible smile forming. "I am," she said, but her eyes held something more, something dangerous, something that promised adventure and risk. "Commander Vorn," she continued, "you've saved lives today, but what if there's more to save than just people?" Elias frowned, puzzled by her words. "What do you mean?" Lyra glanced at the small case she carried, its edges scratched and battered. "This," she said softly, almost reverently. "It's what I was studying on the planet, and it isn't safe not in the wrong hands. I think you should see it." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. He had faced alien predators, deadly storms, and life-threatening missions, but there was something in her voice that made his instincts sharpen. He knew that whatever she was referring to was far beyond ordinary danger. Despite the warning, he nodded. "Show me," he said, curiosity winning over caution. Lyra moved to a secure compartment in the shuttle, opened it carefully, and revealed the artifact. It was small, almost unassuming, but it radiated an energy that made the air around it hum. Colors shimmered across its surface in ways that defied logic. It was beautiful, but there was an undeniable sense of menace in its presence. Elias reached out, instinctively cautious. The artifact pulsed gently, almost as if it were alive, reacting to his proximity. He withdrew his hand quickly. This is extraordinary," he breathed. "Yes," Lyra said, her voice calm but intense, "and dangerous, more dangerous than anything humanity has faced before." She paused, studying him carefully. "Most would have run the moment they saw it. But you saved lives without hesitation. That's why I'm offering you this." Elias' brow furrowed. "Offering me what?" Lyra's gaze held his, unwavering. "A chance to understand it, to study it, to help humanity harness its potential. Or to destroy it if it proves too dangerous. The choice is yours." Elias swallowed hard. His mind raced. This was not a typical rescue mission. This was not a simple act of bravery or duty. This was something far larger, far more consequential. He could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. One wrong move and countless lives, perhaps entire civilizations, could be at risk. He looked at Lyra, then at the artifact, then back at her. "You're asking me to trust you and this," he said slowly. "I don't even know what it can do." "That's the point," she said softly. "No one knows. That's why we need someone who acts with courage, intelligence, and integrity. Someone who won't panic, someone who thinks." Elias studied her carefully. He had faced fear countless times, yet this was different. This was not just fear of death or failure. This was fear of the unknown, fear of a power that could change the course of human history. And yet a part of him was drawn to it, drawn to the challenge, to the responsibility. "I'll do it," he said finally. His voice was firm, resolute. "But we proceed cautiously. Every step, every experiment, every decision must be measured. Lives depend on it." Lyra nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I expected nothing less." As the shuttle lifted out of the storm and into the calmer upper atmosphere, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The rescue had been just the first step. Ahead lay unknown dangers, unimaginable discoveries, and challenges that would test the very limits of human courage and ingenuity. Yet, deep down, he knew humanity had faced impossible odds before, and they had always found a way to prevail. And perhaps with him at the helm and Lyra's knowledge by his side, they could survive whatever the universe had planned next. For the first time in days, Elias allowed himself a brief moment of hope. Humanity had been saved today, but tomorrow, the real challenge would begin. And somehow, he was ready. The shuttle glided silently through the upper atmosphere of Verx 9, leaving the stormy canyon behind. Inside, the hum of the engines was the only sound, broken occasionally by the soft tapping of Lyra's fingers against her notes. Commander Elias Vorn sat in the cockpit, hands folded, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. Despite the calm now surrounding them, a tension lingered in the air, heavy and unspoken. He glanced at Lyra. She had placed the artifact carefully in a containment field that shimmered with soft energy. Its surface flickered with colors that seemed almost alive, and every so often it pulsed faintly, as if responding to the shuttle's movement. Elias felt a strange unease watching it. The artifact was beautiful, yes, but it carried an energy that felt too intelligent, too aware. He had rescued people before. He had faced alien predators and rogue machines. But this was something different. Lyra finally broke the silence. It's not just an object, Elias. It's a key to understanding forces far beyond what we currently know. Her eyes met his, serious and sharp. And if it falls into the wrong hands, she didn't finish the sentence, but he understood. Civilizations had fallen before because of ambition unchecked, and he had a feeling that what she held could topple far more than a single city. Elias nodded slowly. I understand, but we don't even know what it can do. Why show it to me now? Why trust me? Because you acted without hesitation, she replied. You saved lives today, not for glory, not for recognition, but because it was right. That is exactly the kind of person who should be involved in this. The artifact responds to intent, to character. I believe it recognized that in you. Elias raised an eyebrow. Recognized me? That's impossible. Perhaps, she said softly. Or perhaps humans are not as insignificant in this universe as we often believe. The universe is full of forces far older and stronger than humanity. Yet we endure, we adapt, we learn. That alone may make us worthy. Her words lingered in his mind. Elias had always known humanity was resilient, but something about the artifact made that resilience feel both fragile and precious. He had survived countless dangers, yet this was no ordinary challenge. It demanded more than courage. It demanded judgment, insight, and a willingness to face the unknown. The shuttle began its descent toward a nearby research station orbiting Verx 9, a sleek facility built to withstand the planet's extreme weather. Elias guided the craft carefully, ensuring the artifact remained stable within its containment field. Lyra monitored the systems quietly, her fingers dancing over holographic panels, adjusting containment protocols with precision. As they docked, the station's automated doors opened with a quiet hiss. The shuttle glided in smoothly and the team stepped out, each member still shaken from the storm but eager to recover. Elias followed them, keeping a steady eye on Lyra and the artifact. Once inside, the team settled into the station's common area. Hot drinks were served and murmurs of gratitude filled the room, yet Elias noticed that Lyra did not relax. Her eyes remained on the artifact, her mind clearly elsewhere. I'll explain everything, she said, turning to Elias. But first, we must ensure the artifact is stable. It cannot be studied casually. One wrong move and she let the sentence hang, letting the implication sink in. Elias nodded. Understood. Then let's begin carefully, step by step. They moved to the research lab, a secure chamber lined with energy dampeners and reinforced shields. The artifact was placed on a central pedestal, isolated from the room by a transparent containment barrier. Elias studied it closely. He had expected some simple alien device, perhaps a tool or a weapon, but this was something entirely different. Its form shifted subtly, colors changing with a life of their own. It was mesmerizing yet terrifying. What is it exactly? He asked. Lyra shook her head. We don't know, that's why it's so dangerous. Some preliminary scans suggest it can manipulate energy, space, even time in ways we cannot fully comprehend. It's alive in a sense, not conscious like us but aware, responsive, and intelligent enough to recognize those around it. Elias felt a chill. He had faced aliens with advanced technology, but none had the subtlety of this artifact. It was not simply a threat to be destroyed. It was something that could outthink, outmaneuver, and perhaps even judge humanity. "Then what do we do first?" he asked, trying to steady his voice. Lyra looked at him thoughtfully. "Observation, study, controlled experiments, carefully. We must learn its patterns, understand how it reacts to stimuli. Only then can we consider using it or containing it further. One wrong action, and the consequences could be catastrophic." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had saved lives today, yes, but this was something far larger. The safety of humanity, perhaps even the galaxy, could depend on their actions in the coming days. Hours passed as they ran initial scans. The artifact emitted pulses of energy that warped the instruments in subtle ways. Lights flickered, and small fluctuations in the room's gravity were detected. Elias observed closely, noting how the energy patterns changed with his presence, with Lyra's movements, even with the slightest sound in the room. It was unlike anything he had encountered. "See that?" Lyra pointed to a display. "It reacted to your hand movement but differently when I moved. It's selective." "Selective how?" Elias asked. "It responds to intent," she said quietly. "Not all intent but human intent. Courage, hesitation, fear, curiosity, it senses these things." Elias swallowed. He had trained to mask fear, to act decisively in emergencies, but he had never faced something that could see inside him, understand his motives. The artifact seemed almost alive, almost sentient. "Can it be controlled?" he asked. "That's the question," Lyra said, eyes never leaving the artifact. "We can guide it, influence it, but it ultimately chooses how to respond. That's why I approached you. Most would panic or misuse it. You can think and act rationally even under pressure. That is rare." As the hours turned into night, Elias felt both awe and unease. He had seen humanity endure countless trials, but this was something that made even the most advanced human technology seem primitive. Yet he also felt a spark of hope. Humanity had survived, adapted, and thrived against impossible odds before. Perhaps this was simply another challenge to overcome. The quiet of the lab was broken by a sudden fluctuation in the artifact's energy. The containment field flickered for a moment, and a ripple of light passed through the room. Elias instinctively stepped back, hand on the emergency shutdown controls. Lyra, however, leaned forward, studying the artifact with intense focus. "It's reacting to us," she said. "Not aggressively, but testing." Elias frowned. "Testing us? How?" Lyra's lips curved slightly. "It wants to understand us, to see if we are worthy, to see if we can handle it responsibly." The thought was chilling. An object not alive in the traditional sense, passing judgment on humanity. Yet, there was also something exhilarating about it. This was a challenge unlike any other, a test that only humans could navigate through courage, intelligence, and moral choice. Over the next several days, Elias and Lyra conducted controlled experiments. They tested reactions to light, sound, and energy inputs. Each test revealed more complexity. The artifact could manipulate fields in the room, shift the orientation of objects, even bend the perception of time in subtle ways. Yet it responded calmly when approached with careful reasoning. Panic or aggression, however, caused unpredictable surges of energy. Elias grew increasingly aware that this was not merely a tool. It was an entity in its own right, one that could sense human motives and act accordingly. Lyra's theories about intent were proving correct. Every movement, every thought, every decision had an effect. One evening, as the station orbited above Verx 9, Elias reflected on the rescue mission that had brought them here. He had expected gratitude, perhaps recognition for his bravery. Instead, he had been offered something far more dangerous, a challenge that could redefine humanity's understanding of the universe. It was terrifying, but it was also inspiring. "Do you ever think," he said quietly, looking at the artifact, "that maybe it's not just a test for humans, but for the universe itself?" Lyra regarded him thoughtfully. "Perhaps, or perhaps it's a reminder that humans are not as powerless as we often believe. We endure. We adapt, we survive. That alone may make us exceptional." Elias felt a sense of resolve settle over him. He had faced storms, alien predators, and impossible odds. This was another storm, yes, but one of intellect, judgment, and courage. And humans, his species, had always found a way to prevail when the stakes were highest. The artifact pulsed softly, almost as if acknowledging him. Elias knew the journey ahead would be dangerous, uncertain, and filled with choices that could have far-reaching consequences. But he also knew that, together with Lyra, he could face whatever lay ahead. Humanity had endured the impossible before. Perhaps, against forces far older and more powerful, they would endure again. As the station rotated slowly above the stormy planet below, Elias sat quietly, watching the artifact. Its light shifted in patterns he could not predict, a dance of energy and intelligence far beyond human comprehension. And yet, he felt a strange kinship with it. This was a challenge, a test, a partnership of sorts. For the first time, he realized that humanity's greatest strength was not technology, not numbers, not weapons. It was courage, intelligence, the ability to make choices in the face of uncertainty. And above all, the will to survive. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The artifact's secrets would slowly unfold. Danger would increase. Choices would become harder. But Elias was ready. And for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to feel a thrill of excitement. Humanity had been offered a new path, dangerous, uncertain, and full of possibility. And they were not about to turn back. Days passed aboard the orbiting station as Commander Elias Vorn and Dr. Lyra Kale continued their careful study of the artifact. Each experiment revealed new and unexpected properties. Small objects in the lab seemed to bend slightly when the artifact pulsed. Energy readings fluctuated unpredictably. Even the air itself seemed charged, as if responding to thoughts and emotions in the room. Every time Elias thought he understood a pattern, the artifact would shift, teasing him with glimpses of possibilities he could not yet grasp. Despite the calm appearance of the lab, Elias felt a constant tension under his skin. This was not just science. This was a conversation with something beyond comprehension, and he knew that other eyes might be watching them, drawn to the artifact's power. Lyra had warned him that advanced alien civilizations could detect such energy fluctuations across light years. Humanity was far from alone, and the attention of older, more powerful species was a risk they could not ignore. One evening, as the station rotated quietly above the storm-racked surface of Verx 9, the artifact pulsed sharply. Elias felt it first in his chest, a vibration that resonated deep within him. Lights in the lab flickered, and instruments spun erratically. He rushed to stabilize the containment field while Lyra carefully monitored the readings. "It's stronger than yesterday," she said, her voice calm but tense. "Or perhaps it's learning, adjusting to our methods." Elias nodded, his hands steady on the controls. "Every time we try to study it, it adapts. It's almost like it wants to communicate." "Or test us," Lyra said quietly, eyes never leaving the shimmering surface of the artifact. "We are still strangers to it. It does not know our intentions fully. It's watching, evaluating, deciding if we are capable of handling its power." Elias felt a chill. He had faced intelligence before, both human and alien, but nothing like this. The artifact did not speak, did not act aggressively, yet it radiated awareness. It could judge them, understand them, and perhaps even manipulate outcomes based on its observations. That was both terrifying and exhilarating. For the next several days, they experimented cautiously. Elias learned to move slowly, deliberately, making sure his actions were measured. Lyra tested responses to energy pulses and vibrations, noting patterns. Occasionally, the artifact would produce minor disruptions in the lab, a small object hovering midair, a flicker of time distortion, or a sudden shift in gravity. Elias adapted quickly, finding ways to stabilize the environment and prevent accidents. One morning, Lyra suggested a new experiment. I want to see if it responds to problem solving, if it recognizes intelligence, not just intent. Carefully, of course. We can't risk sudden surges. Elias agreed. They placed a complex device in the chamber, a puzzle of energy channels and light paths designed to measure reactions. Lyra activated the device and waited. At first, the artifact remained still, pulsing faintly. Then, almost imperceptibly, energy arcs shifted, aligning perfectly with the pathways they had created. "It's solving the problem," Lyra whispered. "It understands the rules we set and is working within them." Elias stepped closer, fascinated. "So it's intelligent. It can learn, adapt, and reason." "Yes," she said, "and that makes it dangerous, because it's not bound by our understanding of limits. It can manipulate energy, space, and time in ways we cannot fully predict. If misused, it could cause destruction beyond our comprehension." Elias' brow furrowed. He had faced dangerous technology before, advanced weapons, rogue machines, alien traps, but this was different. This was a force that could not be contained simply by shields or weapons. It required thought, wisdom, and ethical judgment. And he realized that the responsibility placed on them was enormous. As the days turned into weeks, the artifact's energy pulses grew stronger and more complex. Small fluctuations began to extend beyond the lab, affecting minor systems across the station. Lights dimmed unpredictably, gravity fields wavered slightly, and instruments registered spikes in energy that could not be explained by normal physics. One evening, as Elias monitored these changes, a faint signal appeared on the station's long-range sensors. He leaned forward, squinting at the display. The reading was weak but unmistakable, a vessel approaching. The design was unfamiliar, not like any human craft in the fleet. Elias' heart tightened. Lyra noticed the change immediately. "They've found us," she said quietly. "Advanced Watchers. The artifact's energy is a beacon. They know it exists." Elias felt a surge of urgency. Humanity was not prepared for conflict with civilizations capable of detecting such energy across light years. And yet, he also felt a surge of pride. Humans had survived impossible odds before. They had intelligence, courage, and adaptability, and he knew they would find a way to survive this too. The approaching vessel became clearer on the sensors. Its shape was sleek, almost organic, and its energy signature pulsed with precision. Elias and Lyra prepared the station for defense, though they had no weapons capable of matching such technology. Instead, they focused on shields and containment protocols, stabilizing the artifact and ensuring the station remained intact. When the alien vessel finally appeared visually on the station's observation screens, Elias felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. The ship hovered at a distance, scanning silently, seemingly aware of their presence but not yet hostile. Lyra observed it carefully, analyzing the energy fluctuations. "They're watching, not attacking yet," she said. "The artifact has attracted attention, but perhaps they are evaluating us, just as the artifact evaluates us." Elias nodded. He understood that this was another test, not just of humanity's strength, but of their intelligence and judgment. The artifact's power could invite destruction or opportunity, depending on how humans handled it. And he realized that every decision, every action, every movement would have consequences. Over the next several days, they maintained careful routines, running experiments and observing the artifact while monitoring the alien vessel. The energy readings grew more complex, almost as if the artifact was communicating in a language humans could barely perceive. Lyra theorized that it was attempting to establish trust, or at least assess whether they were capable of wielding its power responsibly. Elias noticed subtle patterns. The artifact pulsed more strongly when approached calmly and thoughtfully. It dimmed when approached with hesitation or fear. He realized that their behavior directly influenced its energy, reinforcing Lyra's belief that it could sense intent. One evening, after a particularly successful series of experiments, Elias approached Lyra with a question that had been weighing on his mind. "Do you think it's judging humanity, judging us?" Lyra paused, considering. "Yes, but not like a human judge. It doesn't think in our terms of right or wrong. It evaluates capability, understanding, and adaptability. It senses whether a species is ready for the knowledge and power it offers. And humans, you may be surprising it." Elias felt a mix of pride and unease. Humanity had endured so much, yet here they were, facing something that could change the very foundation of their understanding of the universe. And he realized that courage alone would not be enough. Intelligence, judgment, and ethical decision-making were equally important. As the alien vessel continued to observe from a distance, Elias and Lyra grew more confident in their ability to manage the artifact. They developed protocols for experiments, safety measures for containment, and communication routines to ensure that they did not provoke the Watchers. Each day was a careful balance of study, observation, and self-control. One morning, Elias awoke to a subtle vibration in the station. The artifact pulsed strongly, and the alien vessel moved closer. Lyra was already at her console, analyzing the energy patterns. "They're testing our reactions," she said. "Not aggressively, but they want to see if we are competent. If we panic or act recklessly, the artifact and the station could be in danger." Elias felt a surge of determination. He had faced impossible odds before. He had survived storms, alien attacks, and deadly missions. And now he was facing a challenge that required every ounce of his intelligence, courage, and judgment. Humanity had endured before. They would endure again. As the day progressed, the alien vessel maintained its distance, observing, waiting, calculating. The artifact pulsed, sometimes gently, sometimes sharply, responding to the human's movements and intentions. Elias realized that this was more than a test of survival. It was a test of character, judgment, and responsibility. By the end of the day, Elias and Lyra had completed several controlled experiments, each providing more insight into the artifact's nature. They discovered that it could manipulate small areas of space, influence energy fields, and even create localized distortions in time. Yet it always responded to careful, deliberate actions rather than panic or aggression. Elias sat quietly, reflecting on the past weeks. The rescue mission had led to this moment, this test of humanity's intelligence and judgment. They were facing forces far older, far more powerful, and yet humans had the potential to endure. It was not just courage that would carry them through. It was reasoning, adaptability, and the ability to act wisely under pressure. He looked at Lyra, who was still studying the artifact with intense focus. "We're learning," he said quietly, "but this is only the beginning. The artifact, the Watchers, everything is a step toward something larger, and we have to be ready." Lyra nodded, a faint smile forming. "Yes, and I believe humans are ready, perhaps not perfect but ready. We endure, Elias. That is what makes us exceptional." Elias felt a sense of resolve settle over him. The artifact was a challenge, yes, but also an opportunity. Humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or numbers, but in their courage, intelligence, and ability to make choices when faced with the unknown. As the station rotated silently above the stormy surface of Verx 9, the artifact pulsed softly, almost as if acknowledging him. The alien vessel hovered at a distance, observing, waiting, calculating. and Elias knew that the coming days would be filled with tests, challenges, and decisions that could shape humanity's place in the galaxy. Yet he also knew one thing: humanity would endure. They always had. And with courage, intelligence, and the will to survive, they always would. The artifact's light shifted in subtle patterns, a language they could barely comprehend. Elias felt a strange kinship with it, a sense of shared purpose. This was not just a challenge. It was a partnership, a test of humanity's potential. And as night fell over the stormy planet below, Elias allowed himself a quiet thought. Humanity had faced the impossible before, and now, against forces far older and stronger, they would endure once more. The orbital station floated silently above the storm-ravaged surface of Verx 9, but silence was deceptive. Commander Elias Vorn felt the tension like a weight pressing against his chest. The alien vessel remained at a careful distance, its sleek, almost organic hull glowing faintly, as if powered by energy beyond human understanding. For days it had observed them without aggression, yet Elias knew that patience from an alien force this advanced could vanish in an instant. Dr. Lyra Kale worked tirelessly in the lab, monitoring the artifact. Its energy pulses had become more frequent, more complex, and occasionally sent small surges through the station's systems. Every spike made Elias' jaw tighten. He had seen the artifact's power increase slowly, almost deliberately, as if it were testing their responses. "Commander," Lyra called softly, "I think it's ready for the next stage. We've seen how it reacts to energy inputs to our movements, but now we need to see how it responds to problem-solving under pressure." Elias nodded. He felt a surge of determination. They had come this far, survived storms, managed the artifact, and kept the station stable. Now they were facing the true test. He had learned long ago that fear could cloud judgment, and this was no time for hesitation. Humanity's survival could depend on their decisions. Lyra carefully arranged a new experiment, more complicated than the previous ones. This one involved a series of energy conduits, pulsing fields, and light matrices. Their purpose was to see whether the artifact could anticipate outcomes, adjust for unexpected variables, and respond to human thought processes. Elias watched, intrigued and cautious. As the experiment began, the artifact pulsed softly. The conduits shifted in response, aligning in patterns that seemed intentional. Elias felt his pulse quicken. It was as if the artifact were learning from them, observing every move, calculating possibilities. He realized that this was more than science. It was a dialogue, a test of intelligence and judgment. Suddenly, a warning signal flashed on the station's monitors. The alien vessel had moved closer. Elias' eyes narrowed. He felt the tension in the room spike. Lyra turned toward the sensors, her face pale but composed. "They're scanning us," she said quietly. "Not attacking yet, but they are evaluating. We need to show them we are capable of handling the artifact responsibly." Elias' mind raced. He understood that any misstep could provoke an aggressive response. These beings were older, more advanced, and far more powerful than humanity. Yet he also knew that humans had survived impossible odds before. They had adapted, improvised, and outsmarted threats that seemed unbeatable, and he would do the same now. "Keep the experiment running," he instructed. "We cannot show fear or panic. We act with control, precision, and purpose. That is our advantage." Lyra nodded, her fingers flying over the console. The artifact pulsed steadily, and Elias felt a subtle shift in the room's gravity. Small objects floated slightly, then settled as if acknowledging his presence. The alien vessel hovered, observing, analyzing, its intentions still unclear. Hours passed in tense silence. The experiment continued, the artifact responding in ways that suggested intelligence and awareness. Elias noticed patterns in its behavior. It pulsed more strongly when they approached, calmly and methodically, and dimmed when hesitation or doubt appeared. It was as if the artifact rewarded clarity of thought and courage. Late in the station's night cycle, a sudden surge of energy erupted from the artifact. Lights flickered, instruments spun wildly, and a low hum resonated through the station. Elias and Lyra moved quickly, stabilizing the containment field. The artifact pulsed in response, almost as if testing their reactions. "They want to see how we handle unexpected events," Lyra said, her voice calm but tense. "This is the true test." Elias took a deep breath, his mind focusing. He had faced storms, alien threats, and life-or-death decisions before, but this was different. This required strategy, intellect, and moral judgment, not just bravery. Every action, every decision could have far-reaching consequences. As the surge subsided, the artifact's pulses became rhythmic again. Elias observed carefully, noting subtle shifts in color and intensity. It was almost as if the artifact were communicating, but in a language humans could not yet understand. Then the alien vessel made its move. A beam of energy extended from its hull, scanning the station with precision. Instruments registered the scan as it traced the artifact's energy signature. Elias' heart pounded. He realized they were no longer being observed passively. The aliens were testing them directly, evaluating their responses to the artifact's power. "We need to act," Elias said firmly. "We can't wait for them to make the next move." Lyra hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure? Any sudden action could provoke aggression." Elias met her gaze. "We act intelligently, deliberately. That is our strength. Humans survive because we think, we adapt, we use strategy. We cannot let fear dictate our actions." Carefully, Elias activated a series of protocols that Lyra had prepared. The artifact responded instantly, stabilizing the lab and creating a subtle energy field around the station. The alien scan continued, but the field prevented detailed analysis of the artifact's properties. Elias held his breath, watching as the vessel hovered, waiting for a response. Minutes stretched into hours. The alien vessel remained at a distance, evaluating, calculating. Elias realized that this was a standoff not of weapons, but of intellect and control. The artifact, powerful as it was, required guidance, and humanity's ability to act with wisdom and strategy would determine whether they survived or provoked hostility. Lyra finally spoke, her voice low. "They're testing us, yes, but they're also curious. They recognize capability. They may respect intelligence and judgment, even if they are far stronger than us." Elias nodded. He felt a mixture of relief and resolve. This was more than a confrontation. It was a demonstration of humanity's strengths, courage, reasoning, and adaptability. They were showing the universe that humans could face unknown dangers and survive through intellect and careful action. Over the next several cycles, Elias and Lyra continued to experiment with the artifact while monitoring the alien vessel. Each test was more complex, more demanding, and more revealing. The artifact manipulated energy, space, and time subtly, responding to their intentions and problem-solving abilities. The aliens observed, but no attack came. Elias began to understand the delicate balance. The artifact required trust, respect, and careful handling. Aggression or recklessness would provoke instability, possibly drawing hostile attention. Calm, deliberate, intelligent action, however, maintained control and demonstrated humanity's competence. Late one evening, as the station orbited above the stormy planet, Elias and Lyra reflected on their progress. The artifact pulsed softly, almost as if acknowledging their success. The alien vessel remained in orbit, silent, observing. "We've made progress," Lyra said, a hint of relief in her voice. "The artifact responds to us. The aliens, they may be reassessing their evaluation." Elias nodded. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. They are patient, calculating. We cannot underestimate them. Every choice, every action, it matters." He realized that the artifact's true danger was not in its raw power, but in the responsibility it demanded. Missteps could invite destruction, not just for them but potentially for humanity. Yet, he also recognized the potential. Controlled, guided responsibly, the artifact could advance human knowledge, technology, and understanding beyond what anyone had imagined. Elias and Lyra spent the next few days refining their approach. They developed protocols to ensure safety, planned contingencies, and coordinated every experiment with precision. The artifact responded favorably, stabilizing in the presence of careful, deliberate human action. One morning, a sudden energy pulse from the artifact created a small spatial distortion in the lab. Objects shifted slightly, and the room's gravity fluctuated. Elias and Lyra acted quickly, stabilizing the containment field. The alien vessel responded immediately, moving slightly closer, scanning with greater intensity. "They are testing our reactions again," Lyra said quietly. "They want to see if we can handle unpredictability." Elias felt a surge of determination. Humans had endured impossible odds before. They had adapted, survived, and thrived against far greater challenges. And now they were proving that they could face forces far older and stronger, not with brute strength, but with intellect, courage, and judgment. As the station orbited the planet, Elias reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had rescued the research team, faced storms, and discovered an artifact of unimaginable power. Now they were in the midst of a challenge that tested the very essence of humanity, the ability to act wisely in the face of the unknown. He looked at Lyra, who studied the artifact with unwavering focus. "We're learning," he said quietly, "but the real challenge is coming. The aliens will continue to test us and will need to make decisions that could shape humanity's future." Lyra nodded. "Yes, but I believe we can handle it. We endure. That is what makes humans exceptional." Elias allowed himself a moment of resolve. Humanity had survived the impossible before, and now, against forces far older and more powerful, they would endure again. The artifact pulsed softly, almost as if acknowledging him, its energy a constant reminder of the responsibility they bore and the potential they could unlock. The alien vessel hovered, silent but watchful, and Elias knew that the coming days would test them more than ever. Decisions would have to be made, risks taken, and judgment exercised with precision. But he also knew one thing: humans had the courage, intelligence, and adaptability to face the unknown. And as night fell over the stormy surface of Verx 9, Elias allowed himself a quiet thought. Humanity had faced the impossible before, and now, against forces far older and stronger, they would survive once more. The orbital station trembled as the alien vessel moved closer, no longer merely observing. Commander Elias Vorn felt the familiar surge of tension, but this time it was sharper, heavier. The artifact pulsed with a new intensity, its energy spreading through the lab in faint ripples that made the air feel thick and alive. Lyra Kale worked at the console, her eyes scanning readings with precision, yet Elias could sense the same unease reflected in her posture. The Watchers had made their move. "They've decided to engage," Lyra said quietly, almost to herself. "Not aggressively, yet. But they're testing our resolve." Elias nodded, gripping the edge of the console. He had anticipated this moment, trained for emergencies and calculated possibilities, yet nothing could completely prepare a human for a confrontation with an intelligence so far beyond their own. Every instinct screamed caution, every thought demanded strategy. This was no longer a test of observation, it was a trial of survival. The alien vessel's energy beam extended, scanning the station with precision. It probed the artifact, probing its energy signature. The artifact responded immediately, pulsing with sharp arcs of light and energy, creating a faint shield around itself. Elias realized that it had learned from their experiments, adapting to the presence of external forces. It was thinking, acting, reacting in ways humans could barely predict. "We need a plan," Elias said firmly. "We can't confront them directly, but we can control the artifact, guide its energy, and show them that humanity is capable." Lyra nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. "We have containment protocols ready, but we need to act carefully. One mistake, one impulsive move, and we could trigger a catastrophe." Elias exhaled slowly. "Then we proceed with intelligence, not force." This is a challenge of strategy, judgment, and patience, just like the artifact has been testing us all along. For the next several hours, they worked in perfect synchrony. Elias stabilized the containment field while Lyra manipulated energy outputs, carefully directing the artifact's pulses. Each adjustment sent subtle signals into space, a controlled display of human competence. The alien vessel paused, observing these responses, its own energy shifting in reaction. Elias realized the delicate balance of this encounter. The aliens had superior technology, superior knowledge, and potentially superior power. But humans had something unique: adaptability, courage, and moral judgment. They could make decisions, improvise, and act responsibly under pressure. That, he knew, might be enough to survive this encounter. Suddenly, the artifact's energy surged violently. Lights flickered, instruments spun, and a low vibration pulsed through the station. Elias felt the hum in his chest, resonating with the artifact's energy. It was reacting to the alien presence, to their actions, and perhaps to his own intent. He focused his mind, steadying his heartbeat, guiding the artifact with calm determination. "Focus on control," he instructed Lyra. "Do not panic. Every reaction must be precise, measured. Show them we are capable." Lyra adjusted the energy flows, and gradually the artifact stabilized. Its light pulsed rhythmically, almost as if acknowledging their effort. The alien vessel shifted slightly, observing, testing, yet not attacking. Elias realized that the Watchers were not merely enemies, they were evaluators. The artifact had drawn their attention, but the humans' response could define their outcome. Hours passed in tense silence. The station's systems hummed with energy, the artifact glowing steadily, responding to their precise movements. Elias and Lyra conducted controlled tests, carefully demonstrating problem-solving, ethical choices, and adaptive thinking. Each pulse from the artifact, each subtle adjustment in energy, was a signal not just to themselves, but to the aliens watching. Finally, the alien vessel's energy signature shifted. It moved closer, hovering silently near the station. Elias and Lyra held their positions, eyes fixed on the monitors. Then, a message appeared in the station's communication interface, not in any human language, but a series of energy pulses translated by the artifact's interaction protocols. "They're communicating," Lyra whispered, awe in her voice, "and they're acknowledging us. They recognize our competence." Elias felt a surge of relief tempered by caution. This was a victory, yes, but fragile. The Watchers were powerful, intelligent, and patient. Any misstep could still provoke hostility. But for the first time, he realized that humanity's strengths, their courage, judgment, and intelligence, were being respected, even across the vast gulf of difference. Over the next day, they continued experiments with the artifact, demonstrating more complex problem-solving and controlled manipulations of energy and space. The alien vessel maintained its observation, responding subtly to the humans' actions. Each pulse from the artifact was like a dialogue, a conversation of energy and intent, showing that humans could act responsibly under pressure. Elias reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They had survived a deadly storm, rescued a stranded team, and faced an artifact of unimaginable power. They had maintained calm and intelligence in the face of an unknown, watching alien presence. And now, it seemed, humanity had earned a measure of respect. As the station orbited above Verx 9, the artifact pulsed softly, its light shimmering in patterns that Elias could barely comprehend. He realized that the true danger had never been the artifact itself. The danger had been in the choices humans made when faced with the unknown. Courage alone was not enough. Intelligence, morality, and adaptability were what mattered most. Lyra turned to him, a rare smile on her face. We've shown them what humans are capable of. Not by force, not by aggression, but by thinking, by choosing, by acting responsibly. That is our strength. Elias nodded, feeling a sense of quiet pride. Humanity had endured impossible odds before, against creatures far older and more powerful, against forces beyond comprehension. They had survived, and had done so with integrity. Suddenly, the alien vessel emitted a sharp pulse of energy, scanning the station one last time. The artifact responded immediately, stabilizing, pulsing in harmony with the energy wave. For a moment, everything hung in balance, the silence heavy and tense. Then slowly, the alien vessel began to withdraw, retreating into the darkness of space. "They've left for now," Lyra said softly, her eyes wide with wonder. "They've recognized us, and I think they respect us." Elias allowed himself a small, genuine smile. Humanity had not only survived but had proven something vital, that intelligence, courage, and careful judgment could face even the most incomprehensible forces and prevail. Over the next few cycles, the station returned to relative calm. The artifact continued to pulse, but with less intensity, as if acknowledging that its lessons had been understood, for now. Elias and Lyra carefully documented every observation, every interaction, and every response from both the artifact and the alien vessel. They knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger journey, one that could redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. Late one evening, Elias stood by the observation window, gazing down at the storm-swept surface of Verx 9. The planet below seemed wild and untamed, yet beautiful in its chaotic energy. He thought of the research team he had rescued, the artifact he now understood more clearly, and the alien watchers who had observed their actions. And he felt something profound, a recognition of humanity's unique strengths. Lyra joined him, her presence quiet but reassuring. "We've learned a great deal," she said, "but this is only the beginning. There are other forces, other civilizations, and perhaps other artifacts. Humanity will face them all eventually." Elias nodded. "And we endure, we adapt, we survive. That is what makes us exceptional," she smiled faintly. "Yes, exceptional indeed." Together, they looked out at the vast expanse of space, aware that the galaxy was filled with dangers, mysteries, and challenges beyond imagination. Yet for the first time, Elias felt a deep sense of hope. Humanity had survived storms, faced alien threats, and confronted the unknown. And through courage, intelligence, and moral judgment, they had prevailed. The artifact pulsed gently between them, its energy a constant reminder of the lessons they had learned. It was both a challenge and a promise, a force that demanded respect and responsibility. Elias realized that humans could harness such power, not through force, but through wisdom and careful judgment. Days turned into weeks as they continued to study the artifact, preparing for the next phase of humanity's journey in the galaxy. The alien watchers remained distant but aware, a silent reminder that the universe was vast, filled with forces older and stronger than humans could imagine. And yet, Elias knew that humans would endure. They had faced the impossible before, and they would face it again. Intelligence, courage, and ethical choice would carry them through every challenge. One morning, as the station rotated above the stormy surface, Elias turned to Lyra. "Do you think they will return?" he asked. Lyra considered for a moment. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they are letting us prove ourselves. Either way, humanity has shown that we can face the unknown, adapt, and survive. That is what matters most." Elias felt a sense of quiet pride. Humanity had been tested and they had passed. Against alien intelligence, incomprehensible energy and the unpredictable artifact, they had endured, and in doing so had demonstrated their resilience, ingenuity, and moral strength. As the orbital station glided silently through space, Elias allowed himself a rare smile. The artifact pulsed gently, the alien vessel drifted in the distance, and the galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of challenges, mysteries, and opportunities. Humanity had been tested, and they had survived. They had faced forces far beyond their understanding and had prevailed through courage, intelligence, and careful judgment. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and often dangerous, but humans were capable of meeting any challenge. Elias knew this journey was far from over. More tests, more artifacts, more civilizations awaited. But for now, humanity had proven itself, not through weapons, numbers, or brute force, but through thought, choice, and resolve. And somewhere far across the stars, the alien watchers had witnessed it. Humanity was more than just a fragile species clinging to survival. They were clever, brave, and capable of greatness. They were a species that could endure, adapt, and thrive against forces that seemed impossible to overcome. And Elias Vorn, standing with Lyra Kale beside the pulsing artifact, knew that this was only the beginning of humanity's journey among the stars.